In this presentation, the topic of our discussion is building better soil. We want to also take a look at our compost test results that was obtained from the compost tumbler. The overview of our discussion is we'll take a look at organic matter, we'll look at the sources of organic matter, compost ingredients, hot composting versus cold composting. We'll look at the soil sample collection, the results, and the amendments that will be done based on the results. The application of organic matter is the best approach to build a rich and fertile soil. It provides the necessary organic matter that improves both soil structure and fertility and feeds the soil life. The organic matter improves soil drainage and aeration. Organic matter also improves the nutrient and water holding capacity of the soil. Organic matter is a fertilizer. It releases a variety of plant nutrients as it decomposes. And the great thing about it is it releases these minerals slowly over a long period of time. So the question is, what are the sources of organic matter? So here are some ways you can have green manure. You can also have animal manure such as horse, cattle, goat, sheep. These can supply the required fertilizer for our vegetable gardens. In addition to those, you have richer manure, which you may have to use half of the amount because they're rich in nitrogen, and that is poultry and rabbit manure. Composting also is a great source of organic matter and nutrients. It will supply the major plant nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace elements. And this is one of the main points I'm going to show you based on our test results that was done at the extension office. So now let's take a focus at composting. Well, most organic materials will work in your compost pile. Usually, there are various combinations out there. Some suggest half-half, but I suggest use 2 parts of brown to 1 part of green organic waste. The green normally consists of green plants, leaves, soft plants, green grass, kitchen scraps, and coffee grounds. Now for the brown organic matter, which supplies carbon, some examples of materials you could use are leaves, dried leaves or brown leaves, wood shavings, straw, cardboard. The decomposers feed on the carbon-rich material, and that's what releases the nutrients and the organic materials. One thing I must note is you should avoid placing diseased or infested plants or plants that has lots of seeds. You don't want to place that in your compost. Avoid meat, bones, fats, or oils to your compost. There are 2 basic systems of composting which I would like to discuss with you. So the first is hot composting. Now this is the process. It takes a lot more work, but this is the process you'd use if you want your compost to break down within a few weeks or so. You build your pile of green and brown based on the combination or the ratio I suggested. You can mix it together or do alternating layers. But as you stock the pile, remember to add water evenly. Do not overwater. Pretty much you should water just the amount where the materials will be moist. As the pile warms, you can mix with a fork. This will also add allow oxygen to flow through in between the materials. Continue to turn the pile frequently. This will speed up the microbial activities. Now, for cold composting, it could take as long as a year to break down, depending on how you have it set up. This method works well for individuals that have very little time. The mixture of nitrogen-rich and carbon-rich materials, the ratio is still the same. You may not have to monitor the moisture as much. Choose, in terms of these composting methods, make sure choose an area near the garden with an enclosure. Should be enclosed to avoid pests. You could use a bin or compost tumbler to do your composting. As you see in previous videos, I've used a combination of various ones. I've used bins. I do use the compost tumbler and also have an enclosure with chicken wire. So with all of this, we want to understand the effectiveness or to prove the effectiveness of composting. And so we conducted a soil test through our local extension office, which is the Richmond County office. So these are the soil that I decided I will be taking to the county's extension office for testing. Here we have a sample from the hoop house. I have a sample from the compost tumbler. There's also a sample from the orchard, just a mini orchard with a couple of fruit trees. And here, this is a sample from our old compost pile. So as mentioned, a total of 4 samples were taken, including the organic compost. Here, this slide, you see this is the result from the hoop house. And we see pretty much a deficiency in areas phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and zinc. And calcium is barely making it in this case. So for the old compost pile, in this area I had tomatoes planted, and they pretty much took up a lot of, absorbed a lot of those nutrients. But here is the results. We see there's a shortage, nutrients needed, it falls below the line. Nutrients needed is phosphorus, potassium. There is an adequate amount of calcium, magnesium, and zinc. So we will have to do the amendment for that. And also, we see a pH of 5.2, which is somewhat acidic. So we'll have to do some work in terms of improving the acidity. We want it to be closer to the pH section of the pH line. So the other sample is the orchard, and this is pretty much close to the old compost pile, but we see similar results. And so there is a shortage of phosphorus, potassium, and also it's quite acidic. So we do need to raise that pH. So how does this all compare to the compost from the tumbler? Here we see that there is a adequacy of all the nutrients as we mentioned, and we have phosphorus, we have potassium, which is very high, we have calcium, very high, magnesium, which is high, zinc, which is just about high, magnesium is just below high, and the pH is at 7.2. So that's just a little bit above where it should be. It should be slightly acidic, but not too acidic. So in terms of the amendment, okay, definitely to those garden areas we'll need to add some compost, add some slow release lime to amend the pH. It's important to note we could also add wood ash, which would raise the pH, but it will also add potassium. Most vegetables grow best on a slightly acidic soil with a pH between 6.5 and 7. So we'll need to get them between that range. It's good to note that Epsom salt also can be a good additive. It supplies magnesium. Dolomite lime will adjust the pH, but if it's a case where we just need to solve the pH, calcium and magnesium, then dolomite lime will do the job in this case. So these are some of the things that I'll be doing in terms of doing the necessary amendment to ensure that the soil is at its optimum health, and that the optimum nutrients will be supplied to the plants for their well-being. So this chart here I'm showing was obtained from the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association with the acronym MOFGA, and this comes from their publication. It's an April 2009 publication, and this just gives some additional ideas of some various type of organic matter that you could add to solve some of the deficiencies that you may obtain from your soil sampling test. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe.